and the refreshed AI conversations that we've had this week. Beth Kindig joins us now, lead tech analyst at IO Fund. Beth, a pleasure to have you on the show. It's our first taste of what you coin as sovereign AI. How does that affect things?
Hi, David. Good to see you both again. When I look at what the situation going on with Apple, we have it down 11% in China. Tim Cook is pointing toward the regions where Apple Intelligence is available performed quite well. Regions where Apple Intelligence, that's the AI features, are not available are the areas and regions struggling, such as China. What that brings up is that this could be one of the early moments of sovereign AI. That means that countries deem their data, their AI, so important that everything, AI systems, AI applications, providers, all need to come from within the country. This idea that there will be a global, global tech companies that are in every region globally is going to be questioned as AI becomes more prominent due to that element of sovereign AI, which is that more and more countries are going to want to have sovereignty over their own data, sovereignty over their own AI, and we saw that tonight with Apple.
Beth, Rebecca here. I just want to pick up on your point about sovereign AI. We've obviously seen, plenty of restrictions coming in on the hardware side on these chips. In some ways, the emergence of DeepSeek has proved that workarounds, however they might have happened, are possible and, in fact, prompted by these kind of restrictions. To what extent are you expecting to see new restrictions, some of these sort of geopolitical considerations that you're speaking about, coming in when it comes to IP? I'm talking about, for example, the many comments that DeepSeek model has been built off these so-called AI distillations, has used learnings from, for example, OpenAI's ChatGPT to develop, rather than an innovative product, but what we might call a quote-unquote sort of best practice product. The question between open source and closed source, even if we were to look at it simply from that element, to some extent, big tech is trying to keep their models proprietary, black box, closed source. This includes OpenAI. That does prevent the democratization of AI. And ultimately, the more development you have in AI, the bigger that AI gets, everyone can now use AI. It's on everyone's devices. There's a little bit of a bottleneck where these big tech companies need developers to really develop this economy, this AI app economy. But how can they do that if it's not open source? I think it's a great thing that DeepSeek chose the open source path. And in terms of restrictions, I think DeepSeek is sending, nodding in the direction that in order for there to be a vibrant development community, AI developers having that kind of access and making these breakthroughs, that it should be open source.
And the other notion that emerged this week, Beth, I want to get your thoughts on that too, is with what we know so far around, what DeepSeek made public, does that lead in general to lower AI spend in terms of CapEx, or is that too big of a conceptual leap to make at this point?
I think it's a very large conceptual leap to make. I think it's actually the exact opposite read-through. We want AI to leave the data center. We want AI to go to the enterprise, and we want AI to go to the edge. Edge meaning computers, mobile devices, things of that nature, even the network edge. Right now, if you can visualize that AI is basically stuck in data centers, to think that by driving down costs is going to prevent big tech from continuing to spend, I think is the wrong read-through. I think it will cause big tech to spend more in order to make sure all of that development is happening in their stack. And then development will cause enterprise AI spend to go up, and then edge spend to go up as well. So I think that's the opposite read-through that I would have.
So is it correct to sort of think about this as a natural bifurcation of the market? So we have, on the one hand,
perhaps closed source, predominantly closed source, cutting edge technologies, high spend, and on the other hand, a cheaper, lower compute model. It's just an inevitable sort of diversification, bifurcation of the AI market?
I believe inevitable is a wonderful word. It's inevitable. And again, I'm going to go back to the thousands, hundreds of thousands, if you will, probably at this point, AI developers that need access to cheaper AI, cheaper models, faster models, in order to really develop this space. On one hand, Wall Street is complaining that there's not ROI on this big tech spend. They're complaining that there's not the next big consumer app. And then on the other hand, when DeepSeek brings to market something cheap that other developers, startups could use, they're now complaining that it's too cheap and that it will crash big tech's CapEx spend. I think all of that is a lot of noise. I think ultimately, whether it's the United States, China, whether you're a startup, an enterprise, or big tech, the way forward is AI, and more AI is a good thing.
Beth, if I can get your thoughts too, since you mentioned Apple at the start here, out with earnings, our reporter actually phrased it somewhat interestingly when we asked them about the key take from the Apple earnings call, where Apple seems to always have a reason for analysts on why why sales keep falling. Is that a good or a bad thing?
When you say that Apple has when you say that Apple has these reasons for softness in the iPhone, ultimately, as an investor, right, what I want to hear is how do you expect to make up for the loss of China revenue? China is 20% of your revenue. How do you expect to make that up? I would want a more straightforward answer, because we know they have strong competition in China with premium smartphones. We know they're lacking those AI features right now. I would want to hear that piece, and I'm not hearing that piece from Tim Cook.
Beth Kindig there, lead tech analyst at IO Fund. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay with us. There'll be more on that story. This is Bloomberg.